Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and today I'm here to talk to you guys about the motion to enforce physical placement. But before I get started, as always, just a reminder that nothing in this video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation. This form in particular can have a lot of nuance to it, so if you have questions about should I be using this form in my situation, what is likely to happen, what is a court going to do if I file this form, all of those sorts of things, we would recommend getting some legal advice. You can get legal advice, brief legal advice, for free here in Milwaukee County through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you're not located in Milwaukee County, you can contact your clerk of courts to find out what resources are available in your area. All right, so we'll start with this enforcement of placement form. I will let you guys know the enforcement of placement. A lot of people say, well, what is it? The enforcement of placement is a special kind of contempt. So it is a form that you can fill out if you have a specific placement order. So, say you're supposed to have every other weekend, and the other person is intentionally not following the order. So you can fill it out in that situation. Some people say, well, I want to ask for contempt. Great news. You can ask for the other person to be held in contempt within this form, and we'll get to this section a little bit later. One of the advantages of this form is that it gets you into court a little bit faster, but there are also some disadvantages, and I won't get into all of that. The other thing I will say is don't fill out this form just because you think it will get you into court faster. If you fill it out and it's not appropriate, then you'll get into court and the court will say this was the wrong form, and they won't go forward to talk about your issues. So if you're trying to decide between the enforcement of placement, the contempt, or maybe a modification and an enforcement of placement, it's really a fantastic time to get some legal advice to make sure that you've got the right form going forward. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. So hopefully you guys have determined this is the right form for you in your situation. Up at the very top here, you're going to put the county. The county is Milwaukee. Well, I should clarify, this is the county where your case resides, so where you're going to be filing this form and where your case is. For us in the Milwaukee Justice Center, Milwaukee is the county we work with primarily. But if you are located in a different county, if your case is from a different county, you should write in the name of your county. Here you're going to indicate whether the original case was a divorce case or a paternity case. So this whole top section, we call it the caption, and that's just fancy lawyer lingo for the top part of this page. And the caption needs to be the same as the original filing in your case, the very first thing that somebody filed. So the petitioner is not going to be the person who's asking for something now, it's going to be the person whose name went first originally. So up here, if your original case is a divorce case, you're going to check marriage of. If your original case was not a divorce, if it was a paternity adjudication or a support and maintenance case or any other case that wasn't a divorce, you're going to check paternity of and put your child's initials here. Again, here for the petitioner or joint petitioner A, if you're in a divorce case, you're going to put whoever asked for the divorce originally, or if you guys were joint petitioners, you're going to put whoever's name you chose to list first. And I know a lot of people will say, yeah, but I'm the one asking for something now. Again, remember that this is just like the title page of a book. It's just telling the court what case we are in. It has nothing to do with who wants what now. And most commonly, if you're in a paternity case, it's going to be the mom's name first, the dad's name second. Most of the paternity cases we see here in Milwaukee County are started by the state of Wisconsin. And just as a shorthand, when they're started as the state, they're actually formally the state of Wisconsin versus mom and dad. But since our form doesn't suit that very well, informally, the courts have sort of adopted just listing that second part. So we don't list the state of Wisconsin v, we just start with mom and dad. So we'll put that information in. You'll want to put the current mailing address for the petitioner or joint petitioner A. But what do you do if you don't know that information? You can leave that blank on this form. It isn't a problem for filling out the form or submitting it, at least here in Milwaukee County. Again, if you're filing in another county, your court might require an address, but here in Milwaukee, you can turn this in without an address. But here's the caveat. You will need to have somewhere where you can serve the other person, because this document does have to be served. So if you don't know their address, you can fill it out, but you may want to get some legal advice about how to get the other person served and what your options are to get them served, especially because this motion gets into court pretty quickly, so you don't have very much time to figure out how to get the other person served. You'll put as much as you know about their address. You'll put a phone number if you know one. If you don't know that information, just leave it blank. And then you'll put your information. And obviously, if you do know the other person's information, type it in. So if John knew Jane's address, he could list it right there. We know John knows his address, so he can list it here. His is north. I keep mixing up which of them lives on which of these two fictional streets. And then we'll tab down. It's Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and your zip code there. And you'll also list a good phone number for you. And I should note, I keep saying you here. This is John who is the respondent. It could just as easily be Jane who is petitioning. So if you're the person whose name is listed first, then everything I was saying up here about if you have the other person's address, put it in. If you don't, just leave it blank. That would be true here for John as well. So we're filling this out as if John is the one filling it out. But for Jane, it would be the same thing, just in reverse. Here you're going to put in your case number. So it should be, it's going to be a year. So 171819, it's going to be a year. And then either FA or PA, and then 6 numbers after that. And don't get confused by if there's a 40 at the front or some other number. That's a county code from child support. We omit that. All right. So then what you're going to do is on the notice line, you're going to list the other person. So if John is our person filing, he's going to list Jane. If Jane were filing, she would have listed John. The court will fill this section in, so you can skip that. And then down here, we get to the actual motion piece. So I was awarded periods of placement with, you're going to put the name of the child or children who you are supposed to get placement with, who you've not been getting placement with. And some people just put the child's initials. You can do that as well. We write out the full name, but again, if you just want to put the initials, you can do that. And by a judgment or order, it should be the same county. So for us, it's going to be Milwaukee County. If for some reason your order was out of another county, you would put that, but that sounds like it might be a bit of a complicated situation. So what am I going to say? Yes, you might want to get some legal advice. But the county where the order you are trying to enforce originated. And it's worth noting, you need to attach a copy of the order to the motion that you're filing. So if you have a copy of the order, fantastic. You can make a photocopy of it and attach it and make sure that it's on all the copies you'll need to make of this form. If you don't have a copy of the order, you should be able to get one through the Civil Records Center in your county. So you can just look up the Civil Records Center and find out how to order a copy of your order from them. Under number 2, you're going to indicate basically what is going wrong. So 1 is saying, I have had at least 1 and possibly more periods of placement. So placement is a period of time when the child was supposed to be with you. They were supposed to spend time with you, visit with you, or be overnight with you, or what have you. And the other person denied that. So if they just said you cannot have this period of placement, that's going to be A. Or if they just didn't bring the child, or for some reason you didn't get that period of placement, that's A. And you can check as many of these as apply. B is if you got to have the period of placement, but it was substantially interfered with by the other party. That would be B. C would be if you incurred some sort of loss or expense because the other person didn't let you exercise your placement. So if you you live out of state and you had bought a plane ticket to fly the child back, and then the other parent said, nope, I'm not going to, that could be an example where you incurred a financial loss. That's by no means the only example. There could certainly be other examples. But so you'll check whichever of these applies. You could check all of them. You might just be checking A. You'll just check whichever apply to your situation. So here, the facts explaining what happened are, so here's where you get to explain in just a little detail what happened. And what I would recommend is most people write here and they say the other person didn't follow the order. You know, she wouldn't follow the order. That's not very helpful because the court already knows that you believe she's not following the order because you're filing this motion. That's what this motion says. So here, like, how do you know she's intentionally not letting you see the child? So, you know, I called and asked when she would bring, you know, Sally to the McDonald's where we meet. And Jane said I couldn't see Sally anymore. You might say, you know, I went to the place where we were supposed to meet and she never showed up. I waited for 2 hours and she never came. You know, I called her, you know, just whatever. So it's basically, how do you know that you haven't gotten your placement? And I know that sounds silly, but that's what we're looking for, is explain the situation. Explain how you know, the other person changed their phone number and I can't get a hold of them anymore. You know, when I went over to that person's house to pick the child up, they told me if I ever came again that they would call the cops. You know, how do you know you're not getting your placement like you're supposed to? If you need more space, you can check See Attached. I always tell people, be careful with the See Attached because you don't want to write a novel the size of War and Peace. You want to be as concise as you can in explaining the facts that happened. So you can attach more information. Please note the attachment is supposed to be just this explanation. A lot of people want to attach all kinds of documents and facts and so forth, or like, you know, here are 10 documents and copies of my text messages. That's not what this box is designed for. So if you have a bunch of evidence that you're wanting to submit that supports what you're saying, that would be a great time to get some legal advice to find out in your county what is the procedure for attaching evidence and is it appropriate to attach it to my motion, because it may not be depending on your situation. Last but not least, here's what you want the court to do. So by default, it assumes that you want to get periods of placement to replace the ones you didn't get, and that you would like reasonable costs and attorney's fees. You can say that you want the court to require the other person to return the child to you. So if you are the parent with primary placement and the other person has taken the child and won't give them back, you might be saying that you want them to return the child to you. Here, under number 4, you can ask to change the order to specify times for periods of placement. Be careful. Some people see this and they think, oh, good, I only get 1 day a week and I want to change it till I get 6 days a week. That's not what this is for. This is for just really nuanced stuff. So if my order says that my ex and I are supposed to get the child on Sunday afternoon, I'm supposed to get the child on Sunday afternoon, and I think an afternoon starts at 3, but my ex thinks it starts at 7, the court could clarify what does Sunday afternoon mean. But if I want to go from having just Sunday afternoon to getting 6 days in a week, this is likely not the right procedure for that. Here, if you want the court to find the other party in contempt, you can click number 5. If you would like an injunction is just a formal court order that requires somebody to either do something or refrain from doing something. So if you want a court order that says the other person has to strictly comply with your judgment or order, that's number 6. If you're asking for them to have to reimburse you for a monetary loss that happened because they wouldn't let you have your placement, that's 7. So you can check again as many as apply. And then that is all for this form. Down here, you're just going to put in your name, your address, your email address if you have one, and your telephone number. I'm not going to go through writing those in because I'm pretty sure at this point you guys know how to write in your name and your address, your email address, and so forth. All right, well, that is all for filling out this form. I hope that it was helpful for you. If you do have additional questions during non-pandemic times, you can find us in the Milwaukee Justice Center located in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Until next time, I hope you all go out and represent yourselves well.